Hello 8th graders, this video is all about getting you started with the Consumer Products Fair. The Consumer Products Fair is a project that we're going to be working on for our very first unit in this class, and the whole purpose of it is to prepare you for something bigger, and that would be the Science Fair, which is something that you may have heard about as being a part of this class. After you are done with this video, there's going to be a little mini quiz and a survey that you're going to fill out. You don't need to take any notes as you watch, but of course you can if you want. All of the slides that I'm about to show you are also going to be linked in your Google Classroom account. So let's talk about the flow, how this is going to work. So the Consumer Products Fair is the whole first unit, as I said, and we're going to be working on this until about the beginning of September. You're going to be working in groups of 3, and yes, you will have input into who you work with. More about that to come in just a few minutes. You're going to make a little project that's going to test which product is better. So I'm going to show you some examples in just a minute, but think about things around your house. The best example that I like to think about is paper towel. You know that there's many brands of paper towel, but what makes one brand better than another brand? Well, that's the question that you're going to do an experiment about. You're going to have to design all the steps involved. All of the steps of the science fair are going to be in this project. In fact, that's the purpose of this, is to get you some practice with a littler experiment so that you know how to go about doing the science fair. And as you go through this whole project, I'm going to give you feedback. I'm going to tell you what things were your strengths of your project and which things could have been worked on to make them better. But I want you to know that this whole Consumer Products Fair thing is like a practice run, which means that I'm not going to grade you. It's not going to go into the grade book officially and affect your letter grade, but you will get feedback and you will get scores for things. It's just not going to impact the bottom line of your score. Then on September 17th, after we are finished with the Consumer Products Fair, you're going to have to make a choice. In 8th grade, you have a choice of whether you want to do the Science Fair or History Day as an 8th grader. Both of them are pretty big projects and they have a lot in common with each other, but they're very different in terms of what you're going to be actually doing. In history class, you're also going to be getting a little bit of a primer or an introduction to what History Day is all about so that you'll have a good basis to make your decision before September 17th comes around. But I just want you to know that this date is coming and that this decision will need to get made. After that, for the rest of the semester, we're talking all the way up to December. So for almost 4 months, you're going to be working on whichever project you choose, whether that be Science Fair or History Day. Whichever one you choose, though, the class that you're in is just going to continue like normal. So let's say you choose to do Science Fair. It's not like that's all you work on for the rest of the semester. We're still going to do science class things. In fact, we're going to be working on chemistry stuff in this class. Same thing with history. The Science Fair History Day project, that's going to be kind of happening in the background. You'll have some class time to work on it for sure, so that you have access to both of your teachers to be able to ask questions, but that's going to be something that's happening in the background. Then, on January 13th, so this is 2 weeks after you come back from winter break, there's going to be the Peak to Peak Science Fair. That's where everybody who decided to do the Science Fair back in September is going to show up. You don't have to go to classes that day, and you basically show off your project to a couple of judges. It's one-on-one interviews. It's very low-key. The judges are very nice. They basically walk up to you and be like, so, tell me how you chose your project. What did you find out? What would you do differently next time? And then they'll ask you some questions about your graphs and stuff, and you'll be like, then they'll say, good job, way to go, and then they'll go on to the next person. It's very low stress. So if you're a kind of a person who's like, I don't really like presenting in front of adults, it's not as bad as you might think. It's just one person at a time. You're not standing on a stage or anything, and it's happening all around you. People are talking everywhere. Nobody but the judge is listening to you. Then, if you progress past the Peak to Peak Science Fair, we're talking March 2022, very far into the future it feels like right now. That's when the regional science fair happens. That's up in Boulder, and you can win scholarships, and I've had several students who get written a check. You get cash if you do well enough. So these are all of the steps, and it all starts with the Consumer Products Fair to get you ready for all of this. So let's talk about what kinds of things you can do for the fair, or the Consumer Products Fair, I should say. I've already talked about paper towels, but I want you to think about any kind of consumer products. These are the ones that I'm going to provide in class, so you could choose to test different types of glue. You can choose to test soaps. I thought about construction paper or duct tape, but the sky is the limit. If you have some kind of a product that you would want to test, that comes into your mind, great. As long as it's feasible to do in the classroom and not dangerous, then it's something that we can totally do. Now here's where the tricky part comes along. When we say what makes something the best, that's the thing that you have to start thinking about right now. Like, what do you want to decide makes a product the best? For example, if we're talking about glue, are we talking about how quickly it dries? Are we talking about how strongly it sticks? Are we talking about the types of materials it's capable of sticking to, its odor, whatever you choose to pick though, that thing has to be something that's measurable. So you can't be like, whichever one is prettier, because it's really hard to measure pretty. That's not something that we can test. So you have to think of something that makes it better. You have to decide what that feature is that makes the thing better, and it has to be something that you can measure with numbers. Those are the only two requirements. Other than that, you can pick just about anything that you want. Here's the schedule for how this project is going to work. In fact, this is our whole first unit. If you want to pause the screen and take a look at all of the different steps that we're going to go through, you can. But this is also going to all be in Google Classroom. In fact, that's how all of these assignments are going to come out to you. But we're going to take this step by step and we're going to work together. Again, I said this already, but I want to say it again because it's important. The goal of this project is to give you the practice that you need in order to be successful with the science fair. So if you do a good job with this project and you allow yourself to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes, that's the dream. Then you're going to be all set to go to do the actual thing, which is the science fair. Let's talk about the group role. So I told you that you're going to be working in groups of 3. Well, once you're in your groups, each group member is going to have a specific job. So you'll either be the materials manager, the technician, or the strategist. The materials manager is, of course, in charge of all the materials. They're the ones who have to make sure that they have all the things that they need. If they don't, they have to find them in the classroom or let me know or organize a schedule to have whatever you need there on the day you do your experiment. Everything materials related. They are not the only person who does cleanup. They are the ones who delegate the cleanup. If you don't know what that means, they're the ones that say, you clean that up, you clean that up, and I'm going to clean this up. They're just in charge of making sure that it happens. The technician is the person who's in charge of like all the technical stuff. So any emailing that needs to happen with me or your group members, you're the ones that organize and manage all of this, the data that you're going to get from this. So you're going to have a slideshow where you keep track of all of your stuff. That'd be like your graphs and your tables and things like that. You're going to take pictures. You're going to have to organize all that. You'll probably have some Google Docs that you're going to be typing into, making sure that all that stuff stays organized and that everybody in your group has what they need for the technical side. And then the strategist is the person who's managing the time. They're always looking at the clock and saying, do we have enough time to do this? During this class, there will be many days where you're going to have a big chunk of work time where you're either going to have to say, do we need to work on the regular class material right now? Do we need to do some trials for our experiment? Do we need to get together and work on some part of our write-up? And the strategist's job is to get the team together and say, all right, what should we use our time for today? They're the ones who have to be really good with calendars and thinking about how much time things take. The final product is going to be in a form of a Google slide. On the last day of this unit, you're going to present your slideshow to the people who have done the same type of project as you. So for example, all the paper towel groups, they're going to get together and they're going to basically give their presentation to each other. The idea behind this is that once you're done doing your project, you're going to be like a semi-expert on paper towels. And so will all the other people who have done the paper towel experiment. So when you show off your process and how you did what you did and what you found out, the other people in that same little group are going to be like, we did paper towels too. And that's very interesting because we got a similar or a different result. And you'll be able to have a good conversation about whether or not these experiments actually showed which product was better. You're also going to be graded on each part of this project, which means that I'm going to give you feedback and you're going to know whether or not things were done well or mediocre or not so good, because I want you to learn from your mistakes. But remember, this project is not graded in the same way that you might be thinking. Like, it's not going to affect your letter grade. You will get scores for it, but it's not going to change anything on your grade report. The reason why I'm doing that is because if you do a good job with this project and you manage everything well and you learn from your mistakes, when things are graded, when you do the project that's coming up, then you'll have a lot of practice and good experience. So let's talk about that. How will the actual grading work? Well, if you choose to do the science fair, remember how there's a choice on the 17th of September. If you choose to do the science fair, it's pretty straightforward. The Consumer Products Fair is going to prepare you for doing that project. In fact, all the steps are exactly the same, except that each part of your experiment will be scored as you complete it throughout the semester. So when you're doing science fair, I'm going to grade, actually grade all of the steps instead of like we did in Consumer Products Fair. And then you can revise any part along the way for a better score if you want. If you choose History Day, it's a little bit different. There are still some things that you're going to do that Consumer Products Fair are going to prepare you for. So you're still going to complete the first few planning steps of the science fair. Even if you choose to do History Day, you're still going to plan an experiment. And the reason for that is because some of the ELRs of this class are about planning an experiment. So that part is just like for the science fair people. However, where it becomes different is towards the end of the semester, while you're busily working on your History Day stuff, you're going to be assigned a science fair buddy. And part of the buddies experiment, you're going to review their work. So you're going to look at their procedure and look at their conclusion and look at their graphs. And you're going to write a very short review, basically like a paragraph. This person's experiment is, I rated it a 7 because blah, blah, blah. And you're going to talk about what made it good or bad. That write-up is how you are going to get graded for those different parts. So the science fair people are going to get scored for their conclusion. The History Day people are going to get scored for their write-up about the person's conclusion. Both people are going to show me that they understand how a conclusion should work, and that's how you're going to get graded for this project. The remaining standards will be graded through labs. So anything that's missed for you History Day folks, like for example making graphs and stuff, I'm going to look at your labs. But the bottom line is this: Consumer Products Fair prepares you for either path you take. So do a good job on that project, this unit, and you will be prepared well for whichever route you take. Now it's time to get started. I need you to go to Google Classroom and open the Google form that's attached in this lesson. The first part of it is a little mini quiz, and then I'm asking you a couple of questions about which topic you might be thinking about, which group job sounded best to you, and a few people that you would want to work with. I am going to try hard to honor your preferences, but I have to make certain decisions based on our numbers and everything. So I can't guarantee you that everything you put into the survey is going to be something that you will for sure get. So please know that I'm trying to make everything happen I can, but sometimes it's not possible. And then my last little bit of advice, as you're thinking about who to work with, I want to remind you something that you probably already know. Sometimes not choosing to work with your friend is the most responsible choice that you can make. If you take this project seriously and do a good job, you will be prepared for a giant chunk of this class. If you decide to work with your friends and kind of blow it off, that's going to be really challenging for you down the road. So go to the forum and let me know your preferences.